When do shadows move?
It took 6 years, but at last the Switch community has been invited to return to Joey Drew Studios, in a sequel that expands upon ideas introduced in Bendy and the Ink Machine. So let's clobber more ink-filled monsters over the head in Bendy and the Dark Revival for the Nintendo Switch. Taking place a decade after the first game, Dark Revival has you play as an animator named Audrey, and after being plunged into the terrifying world of this creepypasta Disney nightmare, Audrey has to solve puzzles and fight creatures in order to escape. Beyond this basic premise, there is more of the Bendy story that gets revealed and fleshed out as you read documents and listen to voice recordings. It's a pretty compelling story once you get into it. The game wears its vintage Disney inspirations on its sleeve, even having in-game visual details like a pencil in a dream, referencing the suitcase in a dream story about Walt Disney. Speaking of the visuals, this sequel uses the same art style as its predecessor, immersing you in a terrifying sepia-tone world that I would describe as the dark side of vintage Disney animation. It's pretty clear that it's pushing the Switch to its limits because of how good this game looks, but also due to how it runs. Now, most of the time it maintains a smooth 30 frames per second, but there are plenty of times while playing that the frame rate would noticeably stutter for a second. This is a digital Switch game that can be played on the Switch 2 using transfers and all that, and if you buy this game, that's probably how you should play this. In fact, I can't help but wish the developers just moved this game over to the Switch 2 for superior performance. Plays great on the Switch 2, but struggles on the original Switch. Thankfully, the sound has no such issues. Sound effects are solid, and the music makes the scary moments even scarier. I almost wish I saved this as a Spooky Month review, it's that scary. Just as good as the music is all the voice acting. Everyone in the cast, from the side characters recording voice journals to the bloodthirsty monsters to Audrey herself, all give great performances, which heightens the terror and drama of the story and the horror gameplay that tells the story. Dark Revival builds upon the puzzle solving, exploration, stealth, and combat mechanics of the first game, making changes big and small to improve upon all these areas. Like the first game, the small run-down spaces add to the terror with their claustrophobic settings. You can't help but feel trapped in this world without much room to run away from these ink monsters, though you'll likely try. And it's because of these ink monsters that even bigger spaces feel threatening, especially thanks to the ink demon you have to hide from. Speaking of which, yes, the run and hide mechanic is back, but specifically for the ink demon and these other ink guards later on. But when I saw this, it didn't feel like we were going back to that 2010s horror game trend of hiding being your only option. This time, the run and hide mechanic is better balanced out with the combat, as there's a lot more fighting here. In fact, you're encouraged to use this mechanic more strategically this time rather than as a necessity, and that's because of what's been added to stealth. If you're stealthy enough, you can sneak up on basic ink people and banish them in one move using the special power Audrey gets. This move also recovers a good amount of health, much like absorbing the life force of the Little Sisters in Bioshock 2. The game honestly embraces its Bioshock inspiration with how it handles combat and puzzle solving on top of its vintage visual style. So you might decide to hide on purpose so you can get out at the right time and sneak up for a stealth kill to heal yourself and avoid taking any damage during a fight. It actually gives the fight back side of horror games more of that survival feel. Sure, swinging a pipe at monsters is fun, but if you can pull off instant stealth kills, you'll thank yourself later. Stealth also doesn't feel as tedious because the times that you have to be stealthy make more sense than last time. Let's go to my favorite part of a lot of games, the combat. In Dark Revival, you only get one melee weapon, the Gent Pipe, but it has more uses now thanks to 3 upgrades you find, like charging it with battery power then using a stronger electric hit against an enemy for greater damage, which really helps when fighting multiple enemies and occasional bosses. But the first upgrade is to use its electric power to unlock special doors. This makes your weapon a much more important addition to you finishing the game, which then becomes a nice excuse for there to be more combat and less hiding. Now, this game is only 5 chapters long, like before, but the game lasts a bit longer than Ink Machine, especially if you have some trouble finding an important item or solving a puzzle. Still, maybe not as long of a game as it could have been, but it feels like you're getting more out of this game than the original. That's more to say something about the game's pacing, the legit surprise twists in the story, and how every gameplay change has made this a better game than Ink Machine. This game costs $30 on the eShop, which is a great price for what's in store. Only thing is, this is one Switch game that should be played on the Switch 2 instead if you have that option. But regardless, this is a great successor to a great indie horror game. Well, that's my review of Bendy and the Dark Revival for the Nintendo Switch. To help me produce more videos like this, please support my Patreon page. Special thanks to my current patrons here. Remember that supporting my Patreon gets the name of the credits and access to my main videos a day early. Also be sure to watch my previous reviews of Bendy and the Ink Machine for the Switch, and Bioshock 2 for the Switch. See you all next time!